2, 3, 4.
Rev up your engines!
Ford and Lincoln are canceling their Rivian-powered electric vehicle due to the pandemic. Now, if you've ever done a little bit of research, Ford and Amazon put $700 million into Rivian, the company. Ford put $500 million into Rivian. It's a company that makes electric vehicles. And the whole idea is to make a skateboard platform, which is kind of a universal platform. You can put different electric motors, different batteries, and then you can put whatever body you want on top of it. They've canceled it. It was going to be an all-electric SUV that was powered by the Rivian skateboard platform, but they've now canceled it. Of course, they say, in quote, Lincoln's future plans will include all electric vehicles in the future. Who knows when the future's going to come? You know, actually, the future never comes. We're always in the present. So Ford throwing $500 million into Rivian, maybe not such a hot bet. Forecast myself. Electrification makes the most sense in big trucks, buses, stuff like that. They can start out with that and then work their way down. To me, that makes a lot more sense. Get the bugs out of it when professional drivers are driving it, when businesses have them, where they have places to charge them up and they maintain them and make sure they're fully charged and they don't have any problems with it. Talked about it the other day in a video. And when you plug an electric car in, there's a lot of power going through that plug. It has to be perfectly mated to your car, because if there's any bit of loose or slackness, that will turn heat up like no tomorrow. Loose electrical connections heat up. Like you get a short in your car, that's where it heats up. It can't even get enough to start a fire. So, professional drivers, corporations running these things for trucks and buses, I can see that. But the average Joe, could be a long time before that happens if you ask me. Well, the demise of the late great V8 engine goes further onwards. Toyota reportedly is going to replace all their V8s with turbo V6s in the future within 3 years. And of course, what comes down to it is pollution and gas mileage. Even with Trump trying to water them down, they didn't stop them. They just said we're going to make them not be as more efficient, but they still have to be more efficient. So it's still rolling along. But of course, Americans want power, so put on twin turbos, you got a lot of power. Now, personally, I don't like that because they wear out faster and I'm cheap. I would much rather have a 20-year-old car that's got an engine that has normal fuel injection, not turbocharging, not GDI injection. They're easier to work on. They wear out less. There's less pressure inside. But of course, they're going the exact opposite direction because they know people still want power, but they do have to meet the stringent specifications. So it's like Toyota's going to be phasing out the V8s and putting in twin turbo V6s in all the vehicles, like the big Lexuses and the trucks, they put V8s in. So if you want to get a Lexus with a V8 or a Tundra pickup truck with a V8, well, you still got 3 years. They said they're not going to make them in 3 years, that they're going to phase them out in 3 years. And of course, 3 years is a long time from now in a capitalist society, so who knows what's going to happen between now and then. But that's their plan. Hey, it's Scotty. I want to replace my Fiat Panda 2013 that worked great for the last 7 years with a bigger car. A Corolla 2010 or Suzuki SX4 2010. What should I get? You got lucky with that, you know? I mean, but out of those choices, the Corolla is 50 times better than the Suzuki. Suzuki pulled out of the United States ages ago with their cars. They still sell killer motorcycles in the United States, but their cars were dismal failure in the United States. Other countries, yeah, they sold them because they didn't mind cheap little cars get great gas mileage where gas is really expensive, so it's okay there. But the Corolla is such a better made vehicle. It's going to last so much longer. And if you're talking about a 10-year-old Toyota versus a 10-year-old Suzuki, there is no comparison of the two vehicles. Get the Toyota. McKinney Consunde says, Scotty, what do you think about Toyota's decision to put a BMW 2-liter engine in their Supra? It's not their Supra. They're just BMW Roadsters anyways. They're built in a BMW factory, so no surprise. BMW's putting it in there, so the Toyota's going to do the same thing. It's basically the same car. There was a recall for some of them a few months ago where they didn't weld the frames right. And even if you bought a Toyota Supra, the recall came from BMW because they're the ones who built it. The recalls come from the factories who actually build the thing. So don't think you're buying a Toyota when you're buying a Toyota Supra. You're buying a BMW Roadster. If you want to buy one of those endless money pits, it's your money. Just realize you're not getting Toyota. You're getting BMW. Do a little research and you probably change your mind. Buy something else. Unless you got more money what to do with and you wanted the sports car, go ahead and buy it. It's still just a BMW, even though it says Toyota Toyota on it. They're made in a BMW factory. Simba Marumo says, my engine will not start after I had it overhauled. It's a 2006 Nissan Hardbody 3.0. What do you think's wrong? It won't start. And I see drops of oil leaking and water coming out now while I'm cranking it over. Whoever rebuilt it did a crappy job. I warn people about those engines. When they do go out, I tell people either get rid of your vehicle or take potluck with a used engine from a low mileage wreck, because those are so complicated, people hardly ever know how to rebuild them correctly. I see people screwing up. Last year I had a customer, he brought one in, had it towed in. I said, look, you blew the rod, and there was a rod sticking out of the side. He said, well, the guy says he can rebuild it for me. So the guy rebuilt it for him. And then about 9 months later, he tows it in again, and there it is. The engine's blown again. I said, what did you do? Well, he said, I didn't listen. I took it to this guy, and he rebuilt it for me. Yeah, rebuilt. Thing didn't even last, 3/4 of a year before it broke again. They're very high-tech engines. I don't advise ever rebuilding them, and obviously, whoever did it did a crappy job, because you're cranking that engine over, it won't start, and if oil and water's coming out, it's not even sealing correctly. The job was done incorrectly. But that's why I warn people. You run. When they go, you just get rid of them. You don't bother fixing them. You want to gamble with a used engine from low mileage? Still might have some life in it. But actually rebuilding them, to do it correctly, requires a very good machine shop. Those complex engines, you're going to spend $5,000 to $8,000 doing it correctly. Nobody wants to do that. So either get rid of the vehicle or try a used engine. Moman says, Scotty, what should I know and consider when looking for a Crown Victoria? Well, of course, they have to be a used one because they don't make them anymore. But they were great highway cars, comfy. On the highway, they weren't bad for gas mileage. I had customers with them getting 24, 25 miles a gallon. For a big car, it's pretty good. In town, a gas hoggy, but hey, big cars are. And gas is cheap now anyways. The price of oil is so low, it's going to be cheap for a while. Like any car, you want a mechanic to check it out to make sure it wasn't wrecked, flooded, started on fire, any kind of serious problems. But they can last a long time, and you decide what you want to pay versus what kind of shape it's in. Now, you're not going to pay much for one that has over 100,000 miles. They can still last a long time, but just on principle, you don't pay much for them. If you find that it's one that the police had used, those I kind of tell people to stay away from, because they generally beat the heck out of them. When they get rid of them, there isn't much left. And unless you're getting a project Crown Vic that you want to rebuild the whole thing, stay away from those. But from normal buyers, a lot of older people like them. A lot of older people can't drive when they get older. You get a great deal on one. I had a customer buy one the other day, only had 45,000 miles on it. Yeah, it was 12 years old, but man, it was in great shape. Aviator75 says, I got an oil leak on my 2014 Dodge Grand Caravan. Where could it be coming from? Always understand something about oil. It works just like everything else on the planet Earth, gravity. So if you got a leak on the top, it's always going to end up at the bottom. So don't assume that the bottom is where the leak is. I've had so many people do that and say, well, I changed the oil pan gasket. And I explain, oil pan gaskets just sit there. They're sealed. They're bolted on. They don't move. Most vehicles, they last the lifetime of a vehicle. But they'll get wet because oil leaks from the top. So you can watch my video, Finding and Fixing Car Oil Leaks. You get an ultraviolet leak dye, yellow sunglasses, and a UV light. AutoZone sells kits for like $20 for those things. You put the dye in the engine oil. Then you drive it around. You get the yellow sunglasses, UV lights. You look for where the green dye comes out. The advantage of that is you don't have to clean anything off. If you're trying to find an oil leak by just using your eyes and oil, the oil's all over the place. You got to clean it off. One gigantic pain in the butt. With the dye, you don't have to clean the old stuff off. Who cares? Because you're just looking for the green stuff, and you keep following the green until you get to the top part where the green's coming out, and that's where the leak is. You can't beat UV dye. And of course, if it's not the engine, well, then you put it in the transmission oil, and then you see if it's the transmission. Or in the power steering, you can put it in any kind of liquid. They make various UV dyes. Now, the engine's one, transmission's a different oil, power steering oil's a different oil. They even make UV dye for gasoline that you pour in the gas tanks if you got a leak in your fuel system. It's great stuff. You can't beat it. Peter Pan 8828 says, Scotty, help. I got a 1998 Acura Integra 1.8. It has no injector pulse. It won't start, and they're not pulsing. When your injectors don't pulse on those, most of the time, all those Honda products are pretty well made, and it is an older one. It's a 1998. Often it is just the crankshaft position sensor. That's what the computer uses to see where the engine is and when to pulse the injectors. If that sensor goes bad, car won't start. Now, it's an old one. If that 98 has a distributor on it, just replace the distributor assembly, because On those, with distributors, the crankshaft position sensor's built inside the distributor. You can buy one of those brand new aftermarket ones. You don't have to go to the dealer and buy an $800 one. I buy them from a place called Bap-Geon. They have brand new ones that they get from overseas, and they work perfectly fine. They usually cost me about $250 or something. They just bolt in and out. If that's the case, go do that. This is a very common thing on those old ones. I used to change them all the time. A lot of those cars aren't on the road anymore, but when they were, I changed out a lot of Honda and Acura distributors over the years. Kind of design flaw, those things. But I mean, really, if it lasted, I was like 22 years, what the heck? A part lasts 22 years, buy another one. So I say buy a new one. The new ones might last another 22 years. You buy a rebuilt one, sometimes they don't work at all, and sometimes they break within a few months.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.